with my good friend, Tricia Nelson. She is the author of Heal Your Hunger. And she has some special stuff to share with you. She has some special sauce about emotional eating. And I know a lot of you have struggled with emotional eating, and a lot of you have dealt with patients and clients who are struggling with emotional eating. And I'm going to click this here. She has some special sauce about emotional eating. Okay, I got to turn this thing. And I know a lot of you have struggled with emotional eating. Okay, I'm just going to turn my patients and clients. There we go. I'll turn my sound off there so I don't hear it, but I can see your comments. So I see a bunch of people coming on. I see Adina and Lynn Rose and Angie and Amy and yep, we're live. All right, so a lot of us have struggled with it as people trying to get our health back. And you know, you just got this great program and suddenly you find yourself in the refrigerator at midnight just scarfing down food. And I know Adina, who's here today, said that she had a breakdown last week and she wants to get back on track. And so it happens to us. And then if you're a practitioner, a coach, a doctor, a nurse, whatever you are and working with people, you may give this beautiful program and everything's going great. And then there's that sabotage of emotional eating. And I invited Tricia here to talk to you about that because she is so brilliant at it. And she is so committed to her own journey. And that was where she was. It wasn't more, 20 years ago or so, where, I mean, she literally told me a story about how bad it was that she decided she wasn't going to do this anymore. And she threw all the food in the garbage. And she, about an hour later, was digging in the garbage to get it out. Right?
You're giving away my secrets, girl.
Yeah, well, I want people to see that you're relatable, right? You're not this beautiful, slim, trim, gorgeous model-like person. I wasn't always like that for you. So she's gonna give us a presentation to really, outline some of the stuff, the struggles that you and your clients are having, and also what can you do about it, right? If you think, well, she's not as bad as me, that's why I was framing it that way, right? How many of you have dug into the garbage after you've decided you're not going to do it anymore? It gets to be pretty desperate. And it's like, how do we control all this, or not control it, but how do we manage it and help us to have a really healthy, long life and look beautiful like Tricia does now? So I'm going to turn it over to Tricia. She's going to share her screen. And before you do, if you want to share anything or just say hi to folks, I'll monitor the chat on my phone so that if there's questions that come up that I think would be good to handle right then and there, well, I'll just say, hey, Tricia, let's answer this question. And if not, we can just wait till the end and get your questions answered. How's that sound, everybody? Good?
Cool beans.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll share my screen here.
Yes, go ahead. And then Adina said, I bought her book and read it and highlighted a lot of it. Very helpful. Yay. Awesome.
Cool. Thank you, Nadine. So let me get this in the right mood.
There you go.
That's way not. We're going to go backwards through my whole talk.
Uh-oh, we're going to see it backwards, guys. Memorize it. This is it. How good is your brain? Are you able to get this backwards without her saying anything?
Okay, so seriously, I have a lot of slides here. So here we
are. You got a preview.
All right, yeah, a little preview. Okay, so thank you for having me, Rita Marie. Great to be here.
Sure, it's great.
Just for anybody, whether a coach or not, but definitely towards the end, I'll talk more towards coaches. But this is really, how to overcome emotional eating. And this is my story. I imagine this. I'm putting my spoon into the bottom of the ice cream container, and it's the perfect last bite. If anybody can relate here, it's like creamy caramel with swirling vanilla ice cream and a few just crunchy pecans that added just the right amount of crunch. It was perfect. But I couldn't enjoy that bite because I'd not only eaten the entire container of ice cream, but also half a package of cookies, almost a full bag of popcorn, dozens of Hershey's Kisses. I felt completely sick, and I just felt like disgusted with myself. So I laid on the couch, passed out, and a few hours later, I woke up, and the food I'd thrown out, because I thought I'd never touch it again, I went back and retrieved it. So that's what Rita Marie is talking about. That's that scenario. It's like, I feel so disgusted from binging on that food. I'm never going to eat it again. I throw it out and I go back and I retrieve it from the trash. That is something I did. Now that's me. Okay. At 12 years old. That's me at 20 years old. I mean, I was an emotional eater and I used food to cover up all kinds of emotions and pain and fear and guilt and sadness and joy even, you know, I mean, lots of different feelings that just seemed out of control, and not consciously, but that's what I was doing. But I wasn't the only one. I actually reenacted that garbage eating bender on YouTube, and I garnered probably about 60,000 views and over 100 comments with people saying, oh my God, I've done that. So I wasn't the only one. And really amazed me that so many people have had that same experience. So, you know, why are people having that experience? Because the things they're trying to lose weight aren't working. Okay. So that's the sad thing. And a lot of you know that here is that diets don't work. 98% of all diets fail. So let me talk about, oops, let me find my clicker here.
So I'm going to just say that somebody is saying that your volume's low, and I noticed that sometimes you're back further. So if you stay closer to your mic, I think you might be better.
Volume's low. Is this better?
I'm asking.
Right on top of the microphone.
Okay. Yeah, I felt it when you moved. You kind of moved, and then it was better.
Are we doing better here?
It's good for me. But...
Okay. All right. So I'll keep going. So basically, this is how I rolled. It was very humiliating. But the thing is, what I learned is that it's not about the food. You know, this is why people are having troubles, is because they're dealing with their problems at the weight level and the food level, and it's not working. And by the grace of God, you know, I received help about 30 years ago. And since then, I've been helping thousands of people overcome emotional eating, mostly women all around the globe, and some men as well. But really, I have a system for overcoming emotional eating, and I've been interviewed on many places, Discovery Health, CBS, Fox, many different places about my Heal Your Hunger system. I've been blessed to have written a book, a best-selling book, Heal Your Hunger, 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. And that is my system. It's really an amazing, you know, it's not a hit or miss thing. There is a way absolutely to overcome this problem. But let's talk about the statistic of 98% of all diets failing. Very abysmal. 70% of Americans are either overweight or obese. Again, very, very sad. Looking at the numbers, Amazon has 65,000 weight loss books right now, if you do a search, and 365,000 fitness books. I can't even imagine. I mean, and they all pretty much say the same thing, right? You got to get up off your butt and exercise. But in the US, 45 million people go on a diet each year, and we spend literally $109 million on every single day on weight loss quote solutions. So yeah, we're looking at a $60 billion industry. I mean, that's insane numbers. And, you know, we go back to that 98% of all diets failing. What we're talking about here, we're talking about doing the math, $58.8 billion wasted. Like if that's our statistic, 98%, that's all that money going down the toilet. It's just awful. So 2 out of 100 dieters keep the weight off. Absolutely abysmal. So what I am going to cover here is why your clients or you struggle and don't get better results, because that's the gap, right? Like, you know, if they did A, B, and C, they'd get better. They'd overcome their autoimmune problems. They'd overcome their heart issues or skin issues or whatever it is, yet they don't follow through. So we're going to talk about why they keep struggling and why it is that they don't follow through with your advice. 3 primary emotions that drive emotional eating, the personality profile of the emotional eater. Let's see if you have some of these profile traits. And also, of course, my proven step-by-step plan for healing emotional eating, and that you can also use in your coaching practice. So I'm going to talk about this. This is my favorite cartoon. She's at the restaurant. She says, I'm going to order a broiled skinless chicken breast, but I want you to bring me lasagna and garlic bread, my mistake. So, or do you have a client that does that? Okay. And so you think you're helping, and then this is what they're going out and doing. It's pretty funny. I mean, it's sad, but it's funny. You know, I want to talk about emotional eating because there's a lot of misconceptions about what it means to be an emotional eater. And since I'm an emotional eating expert, I hear it all, you know. So people do come in all shapes and sizes as emotional eaters. It's not just people who are overweight. It's not just people, you know, who are struggling with their weight. Even somebody who's anorexic can be an emotional eater as well. How? Well, imagine if they're trying to control something like their food and their eating, if they need to control it, it's out of control, okay? And if they're restricting for emotional reasons. So that's why, you know, somebody at any shape or size can be an emotional eater. Also, you know, people have misconceptions about, you know, what emotional eater is. Like people say to me, well, I don't binge, so I'm not an emotional eater. You don't necessarily need to be a binger to be an emotional eater, just the kind of choices that you make around food. I mean, some people eat, you know, 3 squares a day, but you know, it's heavy in carbs. You know, they're eating steak and potatoes, you know, and they're drawn to corn instead of broccoli, and they're drawn to bananas instead of apples, you know, the more carby rich foods. That's for emotional reasons as well. And of course, the binger is an emotional eater, and this is my story. I mean, I just ate massive, you know, amounts of food. Once I got going, I couldn't stop. So we, as I said, come in all shapes and sizes. Now, this is a curve here of sort of the progression downward and the progression upward of healing. So downward, I mean, it's really sad. There's lots of different things that go into being an emotional eater that have nothing to do with food necessarily. You know, if somebody's nibbling or they have a large appetite, they're obsessed with food 24/7, that was me. Binge eating, that was me. Nighttime eating, that was me. Lying about food that I ate, that was me. But some things that you wouldn't think, like over here, you know, have somebody with a big personality. I mean, there are people who are running corporations who are emotional eaters, you know, and so they've got the body to show it, you know, so they've got a big personality, a booming voice, lots of, you know, seeming self-confidence, but, you know, that weight and that food is bolstering them, okay? So there's a lot that goes on underneath there, like low self-esteem, you know, and insecurity. Also overspending, lots of overeaters are overspenders, you know. Our relationship with money is very similar to our relationship with food. Most emotional eaters, and when I say emotional eating, as I said, it runs the gamut. You can insert the word people with disordered eating, whatever you want to call it. Most people with food and weight issues, in my experience, have a lot of anxiety or were very fear-based. I know for me, I had so much fear. But we also, you know, as nice and wonderful as we are, we're also very resentful. We also play the victim quite a bit. So there's a lot that goes into being an emotional eater, and I'm going to get to that in a little while with my anatomy of the emotional eater traits. But it's not just about food. You know, people always wonder if they're an emotional eater. Well, there's definitely an addictive quality that goes into one's eating, and not all emotional eaters are addicts, but I want to talk about the addictive personality for a minute, and sort of the idea of being addicted to food, because addiction, you know, sort of the main elements of addiction are loss of control. If once you start, you can't stop. Whether you get kind of antisocial once you start your addiction, like you sort of burrow in, or you don't answer the phone. Also risk, is it causing you issues? Like, are you involved in risky behavior, like eating high fat foods, for instance, with the food addict? And also biological effects, like, are you literally killing yourself? You know, are there things happening inside your body like diabetes and heart disease? And as I said, autoimmune disease can be certainly caused by or exacerbated by the foods that you're eating. So these are, you know, if you look at these things, these are all in place if somebody is overeating. There's a loss of control, certainly, like nobody intends to binge, you know, on food that they eat, or eat the whole bag instead of just a handful. You know, when we have binged, we feel disgusting. The last thing we want to do is go out with our friends, right? We're certainly risking our health. I mean, people with diabetes, you know, they're warned by their doctor, if you keep eating that way, you're going to lose a limb. Like, you're literally going to lose a foot. And yet they keep eating, you know, and eating sugar. So there's a lot of things that go into this that are very much, you know, telltale signs of addiction. Also the reward system of this. I mean, we're talking more about substances like sugar, But there is definitely a rewards system at play here for people who are, you know, addicted to sugar. Okay, so sugar has been proven to be just as addictive as cocaine. They fed it to mice, you know, and the results are astounding. You know, I know for myself, when I eat sugar, you know, it triggers me and I want to eat more sugar. Okay, so that sweet taste is not just the taste, it's not just the emotional hit, it's physical as well. And I know, Rita Marie, you can concur with that. But the studies of the mice, you know, they fed mice increasing amounts of sugar and then took it away. And these mice experienced cravings, teeth chattering, anxiety, shaking, depression. I mean, these are some serious like issues here, and it's definitely an addiction. But that's, you know, that's sugar. That's not all food. That's definitely sugar and carbs that metabolizes sugar. But, you know, I will say from my experience that while there is that physical component to this, more than anything, what we're talking about, you know, that's definitely no question. I'm a sugar addict. There's no question. My body is very, very, it's just very allergic to sugar. Okay, that's been my experience. Also, it's true with alcohol. I react to alcohol very strongly, which is a most refined form of sugar. But beyond that, okay, beyond the physical, you know, if it were just about the physical addiction, it's like, well, leave sugar alone, you'll be fine. But 90% of my experience of cravings are emotional. Okay, so even if you leave the sugar alone and it's not in your body, when you start thinking about chocolate, when you start thinking about food, when it's not in your system, that's an emotional addiction. Those cravings are coming from an emotional place. So I want to talk about the PEP formula and sort of start to drill into what those emotions are about. So when people use food addictively, okay, they're using it as a painkiller. Okay, a painkiller could be killing certainly physical pain if somebody has chronic pain, but more often I'm talking about emotional pain, trauma from one's past, an unhappy marriage, or you know, certainly relationships that are awry, or a job that is not a good fit for somebody. This is going to cause emotional pain. And that's going to drive somebody's eating. So eating, you know, the reason why we don't just binge on salads, but it's more the heavier carby rich foods, is because they kill the pain. They sort of put a little blanket right over those emotions. We also use food for escape. This is the E in the PEP formula. We use food as an escape because life gets hard. Life gets hard and we tend to be more fearful, and it's like we just want to get away from it all. You know, emotional eaters are very responsible. We're not like the alcoholics who are just wreaking havoc in their lives. You know, we do wreak havoc, but it's in a more subtle way. And usually it's on ourselves and our bodies. And so, you know, so much of the time we're super responsible. We're good at our jobs. You know, we're good parents. We're doing the best we can. And we just get so tired, and we're just afraid of the burden of life that we just want to escape. So fear is a big driver of emotional eating. You know, that I often say it's like that Norton antivirus in the back of our minds. You know, it's just always we're awfulizing, worrying, you know, thinking about the worst case scenarios. And that definitely drives that unconscious nibbling and snacking. And the last P is punishment, okay? So the punishment is something we don't think about, because when we're sitting there enjoying our favorite foods, we're like, I'm not punishing myself, I'm rewarding myself, right? But if you think about going overboard, when we eat too much by mistake and we end up feeling disgusting and sick, and we don't, like, again, throw the rest of the chocolate in the trash, you know, what we're doing to ourselves is more of a form of punishment. Then we don't want to, you know, we don't fit in our jeans. We don't want to go out with our friends. You know, what drives that? You know, the main driver of our need to punish is guilt. And emotional eaters feel guilt very strongly, okay? We feel everything more than your average person. And we feel bad. I mean, we are beating on ourselves constantly. So we are, you know, eating over guilt as well. That's why we end up destroying our bodies, you know, because there's unconscious, subconscious guilt that must be addressed. Now, you might be wondering, you know, well, what creates that pain, that fear, and the guilt? And that's definitely one layer of things. And I'm just going to go a layer deeper on sort of what ways that we're living that's driving that pain, fear, and guilt. Because the good news is, it's not going to sound like good news. The good news is we are creating that pain, fear, and guilt usually in our lives, which means we can change it, okay? We can change, I mean, of course, if we have trauma in our past, we're not going to change that, but we can change how we see it. We can change how we process, how we react to life. And what's happened over time is we've developed these personality traits. I identified 24 personality traits, which make up the anatomy of the emotional eater. And these traits must be identified and harnessed and, you know, and approached from a new perspective in order to not have them creating that pain, fear, and guilt in our lives. But the good news is because we play a part in these things, we can make changes. And to me, that's really good news. We're not just victims. So much of the time people think they eat just, you know, like it just comes upon them, those cravings. But my experience is we play a big role in having those cravings. And that means we can make changes and change the outcome. So there's 24 personality traits. I'm not going to go through them all. Rita Marie would kill me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the top one, and that's people pleasing. Well, I'll tell you about the top three. So the top one is people pleasing. I've never met an emotional eater who wasn't a people pleaser, okay? So it's there somewhere. And, you know, I love this cartoon. She's like, you know, I'll do it, no problem, give it to me, you know, consider it done. How many of you have been like that? You know, like just always so willing to be the one to raise your hand. It's not a bad quality on the surface, but if you're an emotional eater, it comes from a deeper place. You know, we tend to not have gotten a strong sense of ourselves growing up, you know, whether we grew up in an alcoholic home or some kind of trauma was going on, you know, we just didn't get that rock solid sense of self-esteem. And so what we're doing is we end up throughout our lives, we end up looking for that outside of ourselves. And that obviously is a problem because we are like telling everybody we'll do the job, we'll do their job, we'll do our kids, you know, homework, we'll any possibility of getting an atta girl, we tend to do that. And that is a trap for us as emotional eaters, because what happens is, you know, first of all, people pleasing sounds like a very benign thing, but think about it. When you're out there going, doing, looking for those, you know, those atta girls and those hits of approval, what happens is you exhaust yourself, you burn yourself out. And then on top of that, you end up resentful because nobody's ever as pleased as we think they're going to be, right? Like we're just like, you know, just assuming people will be really happy and approve of us, but sometimes they don't even notice. Have you ever had that experience where you bust your butt and nobody even says thank you? It's the worst feeling in the world. And so what happens is we end up disgruntled and kind of pissed off. And then that's the perfect storm, you know, being burnt out and pissed off is the perfect storm for a binge. Okay, so we go home and we have what I call the I deserve it binge. Okay, so that's the problem with people pleasing. And if we're gonna eat differently, we have to live differently. And this is one of the top things that we need to like take a look at is, do I need to be doing all the things I'm doing in my life, like all the things on my calendar, like could they be done by somebody else, or why am I doing like everybody else's job for them? You know, what's that all about, and where can I scale back? So important. Now, another of the top personality traits of the anatomy of emotional eater is being extra sensitive. And I love this cartoon. It says emotional eaters are extra sensitive, like a walking pincushion. Have you ever felt that way? Like you just feel like you're so, like everything hurts, or people say to you, oh, you wear your heart on your sleeve, or don't be so sensitive, or lighten up. You know, people said that to me all the time. And it's because I just had so many feelings. You know, I had so many emotions. And I just was really, you know, burdened. I was burdened, and everything did hurt me. Like I wasn't able to lighten up. Like people would say something, or somebody would say something to me, and I'd be like, what do they mean by that? You know, so we just tend to take things a lot heavier than other people, and that's hard. And that's another reason why we eat, because we're just burdened by so many emotions, and everything tends to hurt, you know? And so it's like, what do you do with that? You can't live with that. So we cover it up with our carbs and our sugar and our chocolate. The last trait I'll talk about in the anatomy of the emotional eater is racing minds. And, you know, emotional eaters really take the cake on this, and pardon the pun on that. But, you know, we just tend to really think and overthink. I always say overeaters are overeaters are overdoers, but we're also overthinkers. And so that's why meditation is such a challenge for us, you know, because like the minute we sit down to meditate, like it's like, I forgot to call the plumber, you know, what time is the babysitter coming? And it's, you know, and of course we're thinking I'm doing this wrong. So we end up like botching our meditation or thinking we're botching it. I don't really believe you can botch it. If you're doing it at all, you're doing it right. So, but the problem with a racing mind is it tends to, you know, be like a runaway train. And then to stop it or slow it down, we go to the kitchen and we start munching, you know, and it does slow it down temporarily, but that's obviously not the best solution. So what is the solution? Well, I'm going to tell you about the 7 simple steps to end emotional eating now. And Rita, I'll just check in with you. Are we doing okay here?
Yeah, I think we're doing fine. Yeah, I don't see any questions coming in. I see a lot of people joined us.
Okay, I'd love some amens.
And they're equating, right? They're saying, yep, that's me.
Okay, good.
Lynn says all of the above, so yeah.
Okay, great. So I want to tell you about the 7 simple steps to end emotional eating now. I'm going to blow through these, obviously, in the interest of time. I don't want to keep you here too long.
You're getting lower again, so I don't know if you need to stay.
Oh, right here. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, the first one is connection and community. You know, emotional eaters are isolators, and the problem is 80% of people stop self-improvement after 6 weeks. But we cannot do this in a vacuum, and we can't do it on our own. And even though my book is awesome, it works so much better if you're in, you know, I have a course, obviously, where I teach my system and a whole lot more. And people get so much more benefit when they do that because the community element is so powerful. And I know it is for your programs too, Rita Marie. But also, imagine, you know, 57%, you know, we all have a 57% chance of becoming like people around us. So do you want to be with people who are just unconsciously eating, or do you want to be around people who are working on themselves and making a real effort to change their lives, change the way they live in the world so they aren't overeating? And that community of other emotional eaters who are working on themselves is so, so powerful. And especially because the number one enemy of emotional eaters is isolation. You know, we tend to burrow in. It's once we start eating, it's like we pull the blinds and we don't want people to see us. Once we start gaining weight, we cancel appointments, we cancel our reunions, you know, our high school and college reunions, we don't want to go. You know, it's very isolating to be in the food. And I love this cartoon. This is so typical for us. We treat loneliness with isolation. You know, she's in bed saying, go away, I'm feeling lonely. So it's just crazy. It's so crazy. The second thing that we need in order to overcome emotional eating is to get centered, to get still and quiet and centered. So, so important. And I teach what I call the 6 self-care success secrets. This is like the fabric of my life, and the people who are getting results are practicing this success secrets. And it's meditation, prayer, reading, writing, walking, and talking. Okay. So these are things that we must do. You know, they're not just good ideas. You know, meditation is a good idea for anybody, but for emotional eaters especially, it's essential for overcoming emotional eating. And again, it's going to be a lot easier to start applying a meditation practice if you do it in the company of other people doing this, because it is a hard thing to start, you know, getting in the routine of doing. But when you're around a community of people who are doing it, it gets much, much easier. But self-care is so, so important, and really getting centered in the morning is so, so important. So you can draw on that soul food that you've fed yourself first thing in the morning. That's what's so important about having a morning routine and really sort of putting money in that bank, because later in the day when it gets harder, you know, when our willpower is nil, we can take money out of that bank at that time, but we have to do it first thing in the morning. Clean eating. This is the only part of, you know, my work where I do talk about eating. And because, you know, people typically, emotional eaters have, you know, they've read the books, they've taken the courses, they've probably written books. I mean, it's like, you know, they coach other people. I mean, we know so much about nutrition. So I don't really feel like, you know, first of all, I'm qualified, but I just feel like I would rather leave that to other people who teach that. And I'm not going to beat that drum, especially because people know it already, but they can't do it. So that's the gap. Again, following through on what we know. So what I teach about clean eating is something I call 3-meal magic. And this is truly magical. And it's 3 meals a day with nothing in between. And what's so, so important about that is that it's really meant not as a diet, but to help people really get in touch with their hunger. You know, so much of the time, emotional eaters, they have no idea what, you know, what they're feeling, because they've never had hunger before. They're constantly snacking, you know, constantly, you know, dousing themselves with some kind of food, in which case they have no idea what their feelings really are. And so it's really, really important that people start putting space between their meals. Again, not as a diet plan, but as a like getting in touch plan. And it really will do that. So how can you heal emotions that you don't know are there? And so that's what that's about. Communication. Emotional eaters are big, stuffers, right? So everything we think we should be saying, we stuff. And I always say it or stuff it. You know, in this cartoon is the woman's eating the things she should be saying, which are no thank you, I don't want to, I disagree, or no. It's like we don't say those things. We think them, but we don't say them, and then we punish ourselves with food after. So I teach people what I call the 10 secrets to expressing yourself with confidence, because it's so important that people learn how to speak up for themselves. And we don't have the language for this. And it's really critical. And so if you're coaching somebody, you know, I promise you they're people pleasing, or they're going to restaurants that are triggering for them, or they're going, you know, they're doing all kinds of things that are causing their sabotage. And it comes from their fear of speaking up. So this is a really important thing to start working, you know, with your clients on, is speaking up and having the language and just a way for them to start speaking up, and not blasting people, but just literally owning what they need. Such an important thing to learn in order to overcome emotional eating. Now, the next step is consciousness. And the reason why this is one of my 7 steps is because, you know, we're pretty in the dark when we first start this path of healing. You know, we're eating unconsciously, or consciously at times, but in terms of what I'm really talking about, well, this is an example of being unconscious. I love this. He says, I try to eat healthy. I never sprinkle salt on ice cream. I only eat decaffeinated pizza, and my beer is 100% fat free. Now, you might have clients like this. Rita Marie, have you ever had somebody like that?
Yes, I drink gluten-free water.
Yeah. So, you know, at the food level, people are unconscious, but it's more than that. You know, the fact is, we have habits, again, bringing it back to the way we're living. Like, we can't eat differently unless we start living differently. So it's really important that we grow in consciousness in terms of just the way we're thinking, the way we're acting in life, because this directly affects what we end up eating. So things like reading spiritual literature, that's one of my 6 self-care success secrets, but reading spiritual literature can help us grow in our consciousness of being one with others. So it's not like me against the world, you know, that kind of fighting kind of isolating mentality or lack mentality, that feeds our hunger. You know, we get hungry when we think we're the only ones in the world and it all depends on us. So reading spiritual literature can help us feel more at one with our fellow, you know, men and women. Also, gossip can separate us in a heartbeat and make us feel alone. Walking in nature, this is a beautiful way to start sort of, you know, feeling more spiritual, or getting connected with the earth, connected with, you know, the oneness and the beauty that's around us. So much of the time we're just looking at the negative, or we're watching, you know, the news and we're hearing about terrible things, but doing things that can get us more conscious of how much goodness there is in the world. You know, thoughts held in mind produce after a kind, and whatever we think about grows. So what are we thinking about? What are we surrounding ourselves? That's why a news detox is a great thing to do. Like, is it really necessary to listen to, you know, the 10 p.m. news and hear about all the different people who are killed in my town? Not really. Like, that is not going to serve me and my consciousness. So really, really important that we get real clear on what we're thinking about. Also, gratitude. Gratitude is a great way, you know, to start really changing our consciousness, flipping that switch to where we're feeling more abundant and we're focusing on abundance. Also, I love to identify instead of compare, because so much of the time the comparing that we do, if we're on Facebook and we're thinking, oh, everybody's prettier than me, or everybody's thinner than me, or everybody's more successful than me, that will separate us. And that separation makes us feel isolated, and then it makes us hungry. So super, super important to identify and not compare. And lastly, do whatever we can to affirm abundance. I have like abundance affirmations that I do every day just to get clear that God's got lots of money. Like there's no lack. I'm not going to run out, you know. And so just any way that you can affirm abundance of any kind, not just with money, but with love, you know, affirming abundance of love, abundance of, you know, joy, abundance of fun, like all these things. When we can get conscious about that, it can really make a difference for us. So the next thing is causes, and I go deep into this in my program because it's really important, you know, and I don't do it right away because it would kind of freak people out, but really important that we go deeper. So each step in my program takes people deeper in consciousness and in self-awareness. So in order to really describe to people what some of these deeper causes are, I use the acronym SOURCE, which stands for spiritual void, old wounds, untrue beliefs, right? Because these things are in there. These are tormenting emotional eaters, and we have to really deal with them. Let me get my clicker here. Resentment, big one for emotional eaters. I already told you about people pleasing and how that causes resentment. Compromise. We're really good at compromising ourselves, you know, hanging out with 2s and calling them 10s, you know, and then getting rid of the 10s in our lives, you know. So it's really, really important that we stop compromising, you know, and we compromise in so many ways, and we do this out of fear. Again, back to that fear. So we have to address that. Where in my life am I just sort of settling? Where am I settling? And ego, so important. To deal with those ego thoughts. The ego, I always say, is not your amigo. And it's really true. It can really get the best of us, especially when we lose weight. You know, emotional eaters are so unaccustomed to being, you know, having any success about weight loss that when we get weight loss, or blessed with it, we tend to go wacko with our ego. I certainly have done this where I just get all like, you know, think I look hot, and then I'm wearing all these outfits, and then before you know it, I'm putting all the pounds back on because my ego just went haywire. So there's ways to deal with that as well, so where we can just stay more humble and more like sort of even keeled, so we're not going on those highs and lows that really happen with our ego. So source is so important. And the last thing is courage. You know, it takes courage to make these changes, you know, and so important that we really recognize the job that we're doing, you know, when we're willing to really go deeper and take it deeper than the food conversation, than the, you know, just the physical. It's, you know, it's a journey, and it takes courage. And I just applaud anybody who's taking that deeper journey, because it is not for the faint of heart. There's no question about it, but it must happen in order to overcome emotional eating. Because again, we're looking at the statistics, 98% of people who don't lose the weight and keep it off. And why? It's because they're, you know, to me, they don't have the priorities. They're not focusing on the right things. And not to say that, you know, it's bad to focus on weight loss or focus on the physical. It's a three-pronged approach. We need all three, you know, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. But really important that we put more emphasis on that emotional and spiritual than we typically do. Okay, we talked about why your clients are struggling, or why you might be struggling and not getting results, the 3 primary emotions that drive emotional eating, anatomy of the emotional eater, we covered that, and also my 7-step plan. So, but I want you to hit the bullseye, and especially if you're a coach, you know, and you have frustration with clients who aren't, you know, they're either ghosting you, or they're not meeting their goals, or they keep falling down and sabotaging. You know, these things happen. And so I want to teach you some really simple steps on having a coaching success, because obviously the more success you have with your clients, the more success you're going to have in your business, the more money you'll make, the more, you know, confident you'll feel, you know, and the more people you can help. So that's why this information about emotional eating is so vital. So how to have coaching success. The first thing is definitely transform your own relationship with food. You know, it does start with us. It's the first place we need to start, because, I mean, if you're a coach, you know the dilemma. If you're an emotional eater, you know, you're on the phone saying, I'm here to help you follow your own diet. And this is exaggeration. She's eating like McDonald's and, you know, food, but But there's obviously there's a little bit of that problem as coaches, telling people what to eat. If we're not really square with ourselves in our own relationship with food, it will undermine your success. That imposter syndrome, that sense of, oh my God, like I don't have my stuff together. How am I going to help somebody else? So really, really important that you do focus on your relationship first and with food. And as you do, your confidence will grow, and you'll just naturally be more effective, I think, in helping people. The second thing is identify if your client is an emotional eater. And there's a very specific way to do this. And it's just really important to be able to spot it in your clients, because again, you could be really barking up a tree here if you haven't identified this in them, and you're just like telling them, making suggestions around food and what they should eat and other things regarding their physical health. But if they're emotional eaters, they're out there sabotaging all the time, you guys aren't going to get too far. So really, really important to be able to do that. I have a quiz that I have on my website, and then with my coaching clients, I give them a slew of questions that they can use in their own quiz that they use with their clients. Also, using your own journey to connect with your clients. So much of the time people think, oh, I do have issues with food. How could I really be an emotional eating coach when I'm an emotional eater? The thing is, you can, because, well, first of all, I can show you how to overcome emotional eating, but no emotional eater really wants to hear from somebody who's not familiar with what it's like to struggle with a cookie. Okay, so you actually are at an advantage if you have struggled with food. And Rita Marie, I know you're so good about being transparent about the struggles you've had, and it just makes us feel closer to you. It just makes us feel like, oh my God, she gets me, And so for anybody who thinks, oh, I couldn't be an emotional eating coach because I am an emotional eater, you can overcome it and then teach others how to overcome it, and they will listen to you before they'll listen to Jillian Michaels. I promise you. Okay. And I'm just talking about the imposter syndrome. You can totally overcome that and just gain in so much confidence. Also, I have a formula, and as you help people apply this formula, it works. It works like a charm, and that's really what people say about my work, is that, it's very specific. It's a very specific system, and how refreshing it is to have a real system for overcoming emotional eating. The problem with terms like intuitive eating, or mindful eating is they're a little mushy, like what is that? And how do you really know if you're doing that? But I have a very specific plan for overcoming emotional eating where it's clear, it's clear. The steps you need to take are clear. And it makes the world of difference, okay. That slide wasn't supposed to be there. The last thing is leading your clients on a path of freedom. So important, as I said, to have a system to teach people. But now I want to talk to you about the progression. I showed you the downside, but here's the upside of overcoming emotional eating. And it's so cool. Look at that. You face your fears. You get more honest with yourself. You're confident in your self-expression. Your self-esteem grows. You get out of yourself. You're more comfortable in social situations. You learn how to say no. There's so many cool things. Again, these things don't ostensibly have anything to do with eating or weight loss, and yet they're byproducts of going through the system of overcoming emotional eating. And that's what's so cool about it, because we're treating the whole person. We're not treating the physical, we're treating the whole person, and that's making a world of difference, in how somebody ends up. It's like you not only have the benefit of, weight loss, which is a byproduct, but so many other things, in how you feel about yourself and in the way you're interacting with the world. So I just really, 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 really want to just encourage you, and just give you as much support as possible to help your clients overcome emotional eating. And I will tell you just a little bit about, how I do that. Just to go over some of the blocks coaches do have, not having a niche is really a problem for a lot of coaches. The health coach industry is growing by leaps and bounds. It's just exploding, which is so completely awesome. Like, I love it. And I love that people, and medical facilities and doctors are tuning into the need for health coaches. But it is a huge it's a huge arena, and you want to be able to niche, and being an emotional eating coach is a great way to do that. Also, overcoming that sense of being an imposter if you have your own struggles with food will make, that's obviously going to hinder you. And when your clients are self-sabotaging, because of whatever it is, it's always emotional eating, but that's going to affect your results. It's certainly going to affect, the referrals that you get from them if they ghost you and you can't even finish up with them. And then not having a system. So this is really the things that I'm really intent on, really passionate about helping health coaches with, is distinguishing yourself in the field so that you can stand out, having a proven system for overcoming emotional eating, getting your clients results. And this is the gap that needs to be filled, is overcoming emotional eating. And also using your background. If you are an emotional eater, using that, and it can be so valuable for helping your clients. Really, really amazing. You turn that all around. So what I wanted to right now is just talk a little bit about my program very, very briefly. And then if you want to talk to me further about it, I'll show you how you can do that. My program does help people heal their own relationship with food, which is so, so important. As I said, it does help you increase your confidence as a coach. You get an understanding of emotional eating that's really in depth. You get that competitive edge, being able to call yourself certified as an emotional eating coach, Heal Your Hunger emotional eating coach. And also I help people with literally blending this in with their marketing. And hopefully, the idea obviously is to increase your earning power. So many, many tools to help you. Let me just tell you what my program is about, just very, very briefly. And it's on three ways. You, the client, where you first don't even have your coaching hat on, where you focus on you and helping your relationship with food. So important. And in doing so, you learn my system, because you have a personal experience of it. And then you have personal stories you can share with your clients as you walk them through that system. So it's super great way to get started. Then you, the coach, I teach you how and why I coach and teach what I teach in my system. I sort of pull back the curtain and show the coaches, why we put this here, why we teach this, where you're going to get pushback. So you know how to coach this information. And then you, the business owner, how to bring this information in with your marketing that you have now. I mean, you have amazing certifications already through Rita Marie, and perhaps other things that you've done. So this is blending that in with that. So it's not an either or. It's like you have a wealth of knowledge. Let's just make sure, let's hone the marketing so it reflects all the different skill sets that you have. I also have two amazing things that make my program very unique. One of them is that you can make money during your training, during the coach training, because I gift you my system that you can put somebody else through and literally charge them to go through it and to coach them through it. So you literally make money as you're using them as a case study. And the other thing is that as you graduate, you literally have a plug and play system that you can put people through as an affiliate, and they can literally go through it, and you can create a coaching package around that where you can charge them, but you're not having to reinvent the wheel. It's two really, really cool things. If you have questions about this, I know I've gone kind of fast here, but everybody's time is precious. And so I wanted to just really give you just the highlights, but there's a link here that you can use to schedule a call with me. If this does light your fire, if you feel like, wow, this is a cool thing, this is something I need, this is something I'd love to have in my wheelhouse, and in my toolbox of things I can use to help people, definitely let's have a chat. And that healyourhunger.as.me/EECT, and it doesn't have to be capitalized. So it's healyourhunger.as.me/EECT. This is a great way, this is the way to get in touch with me. And if you want to schedule a call to talk about my program, happy to have a connection with you and learn about your background and see if this would be a fit for you. It's not fit for everybody, and so I just like to have that conversation and see. So yeah, but the biggest thing is if it excites you, if this topic of overcoming emotional eating does excite you, that's definitely a clue. So love to chat with you. And that's it, Rita Marie.
Cool. Can you give us the link to where they can get more on your program for non-practitioners, just for healing their own emotional eating if they're not?
Absolutely. You can go to healyourhunger.com.
Okay, just healyourhunger.com. Okay, I put that in earlier. So I would say a couple of people want to know things. Amy said this was the best talk she ever heard, and she's very excited. And she says she's a coach, and this talk is what she needed. I think she asked how much is the program, and I think you discussed that on the call if she wants to know more about that.
Yeah, I will say for anybody who comes through Rita Marie, I give a super awesome discount. She's like my favorite person in the whole world.
Thank you, darling. Thank you, darling. You're getting a little low again, so you just get.
Oh, sorry.
When you lean in, you're higher. Angie says that, thank you, I need this. Janice wants to know how long is the program and what's the time commitment?
The program is 6 months, and it's not rigorous. I'm not teaching like clinical information, so it's definitely time commitment wise, it's a module a week that you'll be watching, and then every other week we have calls, case study calls together, and obviously we have a private Facebook group, and there's homework, but it's not like you're taking a rigorous course. It's definitely gonna be alongside of your job and your family and that kind of thing. So it's just, it could be done in 5 months. I make it a 6-month program because everybody needs a little breathing space. There's things that come up, and I just want to account for that.
Awesome. Lynn Rose says, I wish I could eat like my cat.
Oh God, not cat food though.
Yeah, so a lot of really good people just relating to everything you say. And here, maybe you can address this. Some of the people are saying, like, I would do good with my eating if I didn't have to prepare other stuff for my family.
That's a challenge. I totally get that. Obviously, ideally, our families would like the foods that are best for us. It doesn't always happen that way, but it can over time, for sure. But I know a lot of people who do prepare. The thing is, eating healthy is, obviously the preparation part is, it makes it harder. But there are ways, like I don't take a whole lot of time to cook, and I have a lot of things that are prepped ahead of time, or, big containers of salad that you get from Whole Foods, or lettuce, spinach, and I like things that are easy to just put in a bowl, and then dressings that I like that are clean that I can put on there. And if I'm eating meat, which I'm not right now, but I'm just saying that, there are ways to do it. There's definitely ways to do it. It's just a little bit of a stumble. But the thing is, you have to understand that if you address the underlying causes, your cravings you won't have the same cravings. So you're imagining having to not eat things you want to eat, which is very hard and close to impossible, okay, over time. Very close to impossible. If you go deeper and you deal with the underlying causes, you start changing these personality traits, it will remove your cravings. So now you're neutral with those ooey gooey chewy foods. It's like they just don't call to you because you're aligned with yourself and you're more clear, and you've also you've integrated some really important self-care habits. Again, you got to do this in a community of people who are doing it, and my coaches are doing it, and it's like, and my clients. And so when you do that, when you're in solidarity with people who are doing that, it makes it so much easier to say no to those things and to not even crave them.
I love that. And I totally agree, because, people say to me, you have amazing willpower. I don't have any willpower, zero willpower. Like, you watch me eat and you think, oh my God, she has such amazing willpower. No, I've made decisions about what's most important to me, and I know how it gets there. And, I've been doing this for 35 years, 35 years. And I was the worst emotional eater before. It wasn't unusual to take a big bowl, a mixing bowl that you would mix a whole bunch of stuff in, and load it with ice cream and nuts and bananas and whipped cream and chocolate sauce. And then when I finished it, still want more.
Yep.
Right, that was me.
Salty and crunchy, yeah.
It's like, okay. So it can happen, but it does take the commitment to self, the community, the self-care, and all the stuff that Tricia talked about. So it's right on. And when you are preparing food for others, my son comes home and he eats more grains and beans. I don't eat grains and beans, but I'll make him, burritos. I have no interest in burritos. I want my salad and my cashew cheese and my, my big, vegetable dishes and vegetable soups. That's what I want. But I make it for him. I roast potatoes for him. I don't eat potatoes. I have no interest anymore in potatoes. Yeah, so it happens. It's just you have to give yourself that self-care, the nurturing, and have the tools. So it's really cool. Who else? Let's see. Yeah, Amy, this is one of the best talks I've ever heard. I can't wait to read your book. So her book's on Amazon's the best way to get it, right? You just go out to Amazon and order her book. It's a great book. Diana's going to get in your course. She's one of the ones that got a free bonus of it from our ERC last year, and she's having difficulties. So we have to make sure that we hook up and get Diana her links. She needs it. She wants it. I'll say that. I gave them the link to the quiz. The link I gave you in the chat that says take your quiz, you can also use that to go there and check out her course. Let's see. Diana, this can apply to any bad behaviors, like other addictions. Yeah, perfect. All right. For a whole bunch of people on, hi, Janine. If I didn't say hi to you, it's because your name flew by while Tricia was speaking, but Diana and Tricia, not Tricia, you're Tricia. Janine and Amy, we talked about Amy, and Lynn Rose, we talked. Let's see, Angie. I saw a few others pop in, Janice and Alma. Hi, Alma. Yeah, a lot of good people. Francis.
And I'm going to put that link in the chat again if somebody's interested in the coaching program. We're starting soon, so I'm just put that link there if you want to schedule.
Okay, good. Roxanne, hi. Orly, hi. Yeah, a lot of people are watching, so yay.
Oh, great to have you all.
Yeah, so thumbs up if this was good. Put some hearts in the chat if this was helpful for you. It's a process like anything else, right? You don't expect to change your diet overnight. You don't expect to get on a really hot exercise program overnight. It's like working with it in your baby steps and putting things into practice step by step. So I think you can all do it. Yeah. So Diana said, thank you. And yes, I do need it. And Nina says, I'm there slowly, but surely I will be successful. And then Adina says she'll do periodic fasts to like do the break, right? To make that, like you said, not eating is easier, not eating this stuff at all, but then you go back to it. So it's really working on those emotions, and Nina, do the fast to reset yourself, get back on track, but work on those emotional things, the meditation and all the other things that Tricia talked about. Amy says, thank you. Yeah, so give us some hearts if you liked what we talked about, and we're going to let everybody go, and thank you for coming out. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really happy that you talked about this, because I think, more and more people need this, and more coaches need to understand how to deal with it. Because if you're great at your nutrition and lab reading and all the other things, but you're like, why am I not getting through to this person? Why can't this person stick to her plan? It's probably an underlying emotional block, emotional eating, and other resistances that are going on in the body. So,
Rita Marie, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming out and supporting us and really being interested in this. Thank you so much. A lot of people are saying, yes, need to reread the book. Yes, and Adina, I think so, because anything you start to go off track on, you need reinforcement, right? So get the book, consider joining the program, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.